Yes, that's right. Tough as nails. Season 2 recaps are back here. I am Rob Cesternino here to talk about episode number 2 of Tough as Nails, season 2, back with our savage crew to talk about it all. First, let's welcome in a woman, Tough as Nails, super fan. Here is the great Jessica Liese. Jess, how are you?
I'm great, Rob. I feel like I can produce 4 cups of terrible opinions per second. So I think I'm going to be on the right podcast today.
Yes, and also welcome in our own Mikey Slimebrows. Here is Mike Bloom.
Yeah, sorry. I got to that nickname way ahead of time back in high school. So happy to be here. I'm going to give my mood right now a big thumbs up. Oh, wait, is that awkward to say? Did I put
Too
my foot?
soon,
Did I get my foot in the door in a manner of speaking?
Mike.
All
Dirty
right.
hands, more like broken hands.
We had our first elimination from the individual competition, but I just want to confirm that is Tara staying in the game?
I guess that's the big cliffhanger, right? So here's the thing. I'm sure we'll get into everything that happened in the end of this episode because this was definitely the most emotional end of an episode we've had yet in Tough as Nails history, all 12 episodes, I suppose. But it it sort of was built out, or at least the way Angel was vocalizing it was that it could be a quit. But Phil throws in this aside that makes it feel like there's a good chance it might be a medevac. There's a good chance next episode Tara might not be medically cleared to come back and play the rest of the season.
Yeah, and if that's the case, how are they going to handle that? Where, now we have lopsided teams for the first time. Will we see one team have to sit somebody out?
It's a good question. Survivor kind of paved the way for this, but it's possible that they have challenges that are designed around being able to work around that.
Yeah.
Plus,
Or they could do what Amazing Race Australia did and just like bring in some random new people.
Yeah, the intruder of Tough as Nails. But the motto of the show, though, is if you're the underdog, you keep working hard until you are just ground to nubs. I can absolutely imagine how they just say, okay, Dirty Hands, you're down to 5 against Savage Crew 6. You're going to be at a disadvantage the entire time, but that's the Tough as Nails motto, right? No matter how many people you have on your crew, you work yourselves to the bone and then some.
Tough as nubs.
Yeah. All right. So we'll see that. Of course, every week we extend the invitation to the host, executive producer of Tough as Nails, Phil Kogan. Maybe he'll pop in. Maybe he'll listen to this podcast after the fact and be able to answer our questions at a future date. But until then, we'll just get to speculate on what's going on here. And I thought that this was the most emotional episode of Tough as Nails yet, and I felt like that was a very good omen for season 2. I was not expecting the first showdown to ultimately come down to this.
Yeah, I think it definitely shows an escalation from season 1 when maybe we would make remarks here and there about certain contestants who might not necessarily leap off the television screen in terms of emotionality. I think the heart of these contestants is really shining throughout. And throughout, I think what it would say were 3 very eclectic competitions as well. I would not expect season 1, for example, to go to the seashore and do all of these boat-based tasks. And so I think it shows not only an acceleration in the production of season 2, the process of which Phil talked us through last week, but also I think an acceleration in the storytelling and the emotional investment of these contestants as well. Because when you have people, crying and grunting their way through stuff in the second week, really the first outright regular round of Tough as Nails, it is going to be a long, but I think very emotionally fruitful journey.
Yeah, and I thought that the dock was an interesting locale to take Tough as Nails. I didn't really think about it a lot, but I kind of felt like that, okay, we'll just see a lot of like the same types of locations we saw in season 1. Jess, I thought that the going down by the docks really felt very original for the show, and I'm actually interested to see where they go in season 2.
Well, I'm not surprised to see it, to be honest, because we have made much of the idea that working on a fishing boat is much, much tougher than one might think. And, we talked about it a lot with Callie last season. And then work on boats at docks is is something that they keep coming back to, and you have Tara this season. I think they were going to go there eventually. If they keep casting people that work on boats, they got to go to a boat sometime.
Now,
Well,
Mike,
we know that Phil brought up, right, that he's theming seasons of Tough as Nails off of The Wire. So, of course, season 2 has to go to the docks.
Good.
Season 4, they're going to go into the schools. Season 5, they're, of course, covering how to be a reporter. So I think it makes sense.
Yeah, well, one of the toughest professions is, of course, dealing drugs.
Yeah.
Let's not go there. Okay. But I do want to go somewhere else. I want to go to Mike's use of the word seashore, as if Tough as Nails is taking place in a British children's book in the 1950s. Like
the slime eels do seem like a creature out of like some sort of black and white, cell-shaded, demented book of children's fairy tales. I know they're actually real life creatures, but it does sound like something you read to your child at night to scare them.
Wasn't that one of the things that Wesley had to get through in The Princess Bride, of like the sea of slime eels?
Yeah, the sea of slime eels, the rodents of unusual size, the fire swamp. Yeah, it was all there. The cliffs of despair.
Yeah. Mike, I was going to say that I actually happen to know a lot about what it's like to work on a boat because I have watched 11 episodes of Pirate Master.
Yes, of course. There was a little bit of a mutiny, right, when Scott got overthrown in his position of moving boxes in favor of Mikey. So there was a lot of treasure to be plundered as well.
Hard work and swapping the decks and stuff like that. So that's all stuff that we're talking about on our Pirate Master rewatch that we're doing this month on the RHAP Rewind. But I digress. So I guess let's talk about these tasks, because they were all interesting in their own right. We were working on 100 lobster traps. I didn't know about the big West Coast California lobster trade. Jess, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, you think of lobster as being a New England thing. But I think one of my favorite things that Phil is trying to make happen, and sometimes it works really well and sometimes it doesn't, is at the beginning of the challenge, he holds something up and says, "Does everybody know what this is?" And sometimes when it's an alternator, not everybody does. Sometimes only one person does. But then he holds up a lobster and everyone's like, it's a lobster, right?
Not just any lobster, a spiny lobster.
Spiny lobster, yes. I love actually the history of lobster, if we can go down this path for a second.
Okay, all right.
You think of lobster as being like this very expensive, fancy food for rich people, but initially there were so many of them and they were so gross looking that it was like cheap food that you could catch and eat on your own. And it was like they'd feed it to prisoners. And then somebody got the idea, well, we can make an industry around this and we can sell this to people as a very fancy food. If you dip it in melted butter, it tastes great. And now all of a sudden, lobsters are pound for pound like more expensive than steak.
Interesting. Wow. They went from the blue collar food to the white collar food.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, could we be doing this with anything? Could we be finding something that nobody likes and then just try to market it to rich people?
Yeah, well, Rob, I've been trying to do this. I've been trying to market an Amazing Race podcast on a Survivor network for many years. So I feel like I have some experience with this.
The real lobster of RHAP.
Yeah. Phil even was trying to, I feel like, shame the Maine lobsters. He said, these are better than the Maine lobsters. Spiny lobster. I
did love Phil as sort of touch tank extraordinaire this episode, where, like you said, Jesse usually likes to get hands-on with holding up things. But this time, because they happen to be two live sea creatures, it felt like a very different type of Phil. It felt like aquarium Phil rather than the Phil Kogan we know and love. Aquarium Phil.
I don't know. I guess I don't have the full set of Phil Kogan action figures, Mike, but I'll take your word for it.
So, Jess, this was an opportunity for a 5-hole for Tara, where she got to have basically like the aquatic task, and ultimately her team did win. She won the battle, but ultimately lost the war in this episode.
She did, but I think maybe the first task was the closest to what she actually does. And I think she knew instinctively how to go about managing the task in a way that the other tribe did not. They're not tribes, they're teams. I've been watching too much Survivor. The other team did not. And so Dirty Hands kind of had it on lock from day one
Mhm.
and from second one, and then really never. They made a few mistakes in there, which I'm sure we're going to get to, but
Yes.
they had a system in place. And once the system kind of took off, it was really like, I don't even think it was ever close.
Oh,
Mhm.
interesting. It seemed like the editing's made it seem like it was just down to
Yeah,
seconds.
that's editing, Mike.
Yeah, well, could you talk it through? Because for me, like I understood, okay, that Angel was moving around, Dirty Hands, it seemed like that they had a better system, but I wasn't exactly sure what Merrill was doing wrong.
It looked to me like the winning strategy was to load up enough traps that you could get a full cartload and get that cartload over there so they could load them onto the boat. And it looked to me like they were taking Savage Crew was taking it much more methodically. They were like, we're going to load up all the traps and then we're going to load them onto the boat. I think
Mhm.
that was what was going on.
Well, I
It was
think
hard to
it,
tell.
and I think, as much as there was talk from Mikey Eyebrows about, yeah, great job, Tara. Angel was the secret weapon. I honestly think the unsung hero of this, and he's no longer purple anymore. He's all wet and purple. Freight Train, come on through. I feel like Freight Train was definitely under the radar MVP of this challenge, considering that we spoke about the 5-hole aspect with Tara, but the whole stacking aspect is literally what this man does each and every day. So I can imagine that having two people that specialize in packing and specifically putting things on a boat working together, it was going to be a shoe-in victory for them no matter what.
Mhm.
Right.
Well,
If you're
let's talk
very
about
good at Tetris, I think this is your kind of challenge.
Yeah, let's talk about Freight Train going into the water here because I thought that it was a interesting moment to sort of like stop down. Like one, it was like a great visual of slow motion Freight Train falling into the water. So you had that, and also good on Phil who was right there of trying to pull Freight Train out of the ocean. So good job on Phil being right there to be a lifeguard for the cast of Tough as Nails. Now that being said, that I felt like that there wasn't really a lot of talk about like, was this fair play that Mikey Eyebrows says like, hey, move your stuff. He pushes. He was not trying to knock Freight Train into the water, but he did. Are you allowed to touch the other team's stuff? And are you allowed to block the other team with your stuff? I thought that this got into some interesting like strategy and talk about like, what are the rules of Tough as Nails?
This is like the one week where I feel like Phil is going to have a lot to say about this. And I kind of miss him because this is something that you can't really get into unless you were there. But it does seem to me like this is not just rules. This is like basic OSHA stuff. This is stuff
Mhm.
that they
Mm.
all should know more about. Like you can't have you can't have your stuff blocking the egress, and like you can't like move things aside without checking to see if someone's on the other side of them. That just seems like basic
Mhm.
on the job training that I'm surprised either team was able to get around, and that nobody thought of it is even more shocking.
Yeah. I'm curious, is it a judgment call? Like, what if they felt
Mm.
like that Mikey Eyebrows was trying to knock over their cages or was trying to knock Freight Train into the water? Are
Yeah.
they, is that grounds for, being removed from the game? Is it a penalty?
I mean, maybe they pull a Ben Browning and it's like you have to sit out the rest of the
Yeah,
challenge or
you're
something.
out.
Or like,
That's more like the attack
Mhm.
zone. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. It's an interesting question, and I do wonder maybe that was an unfortunate downside because usually in these challenges, each team has a designated area, and there isn't really a shared
mhm.
area between them. I'm thinking about last week, or even during the forest fire challenge in season 1, where they each had equal swaths of land to clear that eventually converged on a central point. This was one of those rare times where they sort of had a shared space. And so I think this is maybe the first time that we've really seen that encroachment. But I do wonder if after this incident, either they took a new approach to that idea or they said, okay, new rule from now on, guys, you can't touch the stuff from the other team because now this type of stuff happens.
Mhm.
And I mean, yeah, this is also Mikey Eyebrows. I don't know if anybody else, maybe others would give it a nice little like scudge out of the way. But I think Mikey Eyebrows, who runs hot and cold as the water he likes to stick his face in, was just very aggro hulky, shoving those cages aside, which then sent Freight Train over.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, he was really in the moment. He was not. He has. I think he might have a little bit less of a impulse control
Yeah.
thing than most people.
A little bit of a hothead, Mikey Eyebrows.
Yeah, a
So
little bit.
I just thought that was an interesting discussion in terms of what was going on there between the two teams. So, of course, that we saw it was Dirty Hands that was going to persevere here with the mantra, keep on baiting.
Exactly.
Mike,
And
that's
what-
your motto, right?
Depends on the weekend.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that well, what it came down to actually was the baiting, I think, in a question as to why Savage Crew lost is because I think Meryl and Selly were a little slow on the baiting. They were really taking their time and really living in that baiting moment,
Yep.
as opposed to just really getting it done quickly and thinking about the next thing.
Okay. I don't know.
Sometimes you just want to get that done as fast as possible and move on to the next thing.
Yeah, ideally. Just anything else from the team challenge that you want to highlight?
I wanted to give Tara all the props in the world on this for really having a sense of the like physiological challenges of trying to work when you're soaking wet. And I think you would only know that if you worked on ships. And reassigning Freight Train in the middle of things so that he wouldn't have to wear himself out trying to drag his wet clothes all over the place. I thought that was really smart. And I liked Phil trying to call the plays in the challenge and like everybody being totally over it in episode 2. That's also very fun. Like Mikey Eyebrows is just like, nope, stop. We're done.
Mike, Swifty from the jump here in this challenge felt like that Savage Crew did not have a good plan here, and he was very vocal about it.
Yeah, I mean, Savage Crew is going to Savage Crew, right? Really fall apart. Start out strong and then really fall apart when it comes to playing things out. I wouldn't say that they didn't have a strategy. I think it was just more so that Dirty Hands had a better strategy, much like how last episode Savage Crew and Dirty Hands both had a strategy, but Savage Crew's was ultimately better. That being said, they were eventually able to catch up, I think, due to manpower. But I do think Meryl's initial designation when it came to roles kind of bit them in that you had two people baiting, but neither one was really experienced in baiting. They were rather chased when it came to baiting before this.
Mike.
And so, then you had three people trying to move boxes that essentially weren't there. You had Scott, for instance, bringing one down and then just standing there, essentially saying what's going on. So I feel like whenever you're in a challenge and you have to ask what's going on, it feels like it's spelling doom for Tough as Nails.
Yeah. Anytime you don't know what's going on, that's a leadership flaw of some sort.
Yeah, I really do like Scott on the show. I think that he's been very funny so far as the person that's one of the contestants. I feel like that there are not like a lot of like light moments from the cast, but I feel like that he's been a good source of comedy.
Yeah, and Scott, what do you say, 7 sisters and 3 brothers? His siblings could essentially do an entire season of Tough as Nails by themselves.
Are they all the same size as Scott?
That's a great question. Is this sort of like Marshall Erickson from How I Met Your Mother, where everyone is just a giant?
You have to wonder. Like, how do you house that many giants?
Hey, I didn't realize Scott was a Duggar.
One thing I like a lot is Angel bringing everything back to boxing, which, that's close to my heart.
Yes.
And it is one of those things like just watching his body language and listening to the way he talks and the way he frames things. You kind of don't even have to tell me that he was a boxer. It just sort of, you get it. It's something you get after you've been there and done that.
Okay. Let's talk about the individual challenge here in this episode, and let's talk about the slime eels. Now, make no mistake, I'm no fan of the slime eels. I'm no fan of the hagfish, if you will. But I really like this. I feel like that we didn't get anything that was like this in season 1, which was kind of like a gross challenge. And I like this here.
It was the closest I think we've ever gotten to an Amazing Race challenge on Tough as Nails. This very Amazing Race, one of the typical challenges they do, especially as a detour option, is catch the fish, no matter how gross the fish may be. So I think it was a very unique challenge that you saw even someone like Tara, who's probably used to handling sea creatures on a daily basis to the point where she kissed one of the fish heads on the way in to the team challenge. This clearly gave her even a bit of pause because this is not only mental toughness and transport skills. This is also animal husbandry.
Animal husbandry?
Yeah, you have to handle, like, you saw Zeus coaxing the slime eels into the bag, right? You have to work with animals a bit, work with other living creatures.
Yeah, I just never heard that term before.
Animal husbandry?
No.
Never heard that term?
Animal husbandry? No, that's new to me.
Yeah, I guess that's more of an agricultural thing, but it's like, it's how would you define it, Mike? It's like
It's basically like taking care of farm animals.
Yeah, taking care of animals. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I live a sheltered life. I'm watching the Survivor season a week. Telling you all the tried.
Well, yeah, then I'll make the Survivor comparison. Rupert and Ryan-O have both practiced animal husbandry in Survivor Pearl Islands.
Makes sense now. Yes. Okay. And was Balboa a slime eel?
Well, I think it was just. I don't think there was anything coming out of him. So
well,
I'm
if
assuming
there was, it wasn't slime.
Yeah. Okay. 4 cups of slime a second. Could that be right, Jess?
Those slime eels don't even look like they occupy 4 cups of volume. So how's that even possible? Like, are these like physics violating slime eels?
These seem like miracles of nature in many ways. There are countless articles that I've read up, and Phil even tweeted this out as well during the episode about how hagfish slime might be honestly the new hotness, in that, like, the specific proteins that it synthesizes can be used in environmentally friendly fabric, could be used for plastics. So honestly,
and also bulletproof vests I saw in Phil's tweet, which
exactly.
I said, I think I'd take my chance with the bullet over the slime.
The saviors of our planet might indeed be these little worms.
And I love it when there's an animal that I've never heard of, and then it turns out to be like this deeply fascinating rabbit hole of facts. They're like, slime eels are the 2021 honey badgers.
Yeah, they don't give an F.
Yeah, they certainly don't. I love that they can excrete the slime and use it to try to climb out of the bag.
That was really smart. I'm glad we got these, like, the jailbreak sequence, right, where we have the dodo music playing, because you would think it's just okay, let's just carry a sack over my shoulder, but when they're trying to escape as well, I'm glad they were able to. Hopefully none of them asphyxiated, because there was just a lot of sea creatures flopping around the dock. I hope they were all able to get back into the tank in one piece.
Yeah. Well, I think it's still a sad ending for the slime eels, no matter what, considering that they were about to be shipped somewhere to be a delicacy.
Do we know that's what they were being shipped to be?
I don't think that they were going to somebody's aquarium.
No, but they could be, farmed for their slime. Like, maybe it's a cushy life.
Maybe
they get to go in like a big tank and just excrete some slime in exchange for room and board. That's a pretty good life.
Yeah.
It's a good trade, I would say. Can we talk about Angel for a second? Because Angel was a big part of this episode. Listen, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum, or I guess whatever the opposite is when it comes to fears, but fear of worms specifically, is an intriguing concept to me.
Everybody's got their something, Mike.
Worms?
Mike, you're thinking about, like, if you dig in a garden on the East Coast and you pull up a worm, it's like yay long, right? It's little, it's not going to hurt you. I don't know if you've ever been in close contact with a nightcrawler.
Yeah, I can't say that I have. I know the X-Men well, but not, of the Germanic variety.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody here has seen the film, but no, a nightcrawler is like a worm, but it's like a worm on steroids, and it's like 9 inches long. And when I was a kid, if it rained, which it didn't really rain a lot, but if you got one big rainstorm, the sidewalk would be full of like 9-inch worms. And it was gross. And I did not like it. I didn't have a phobia of it. I just, I didn't want to get near them. I didn't want to touch them. But I can see where a fear of worms might be a thing.
Yes. Well, a fear of worms might be a thing, but a man who does not fear worms or slime eels is the host of Tough as Nails, Phil Kogan. Phil, are you there? Phil is getting situated. Yes.
I think I have a fear of being caught talking about worms by Phil Kogan. I think that's my new phobia that I didn't realize was a thing.
Now you have to face it today, just like Angel did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Confronting my anxieties.
Yes.
So think about it more like a fish, Jess, and that should help.
Yeah. Well, it's like a worm and a fish had babies. Is this hagfish?
Yeah. Boy. And slime eels in like a mesh bag also. That was like a real mean touch. You couldn't have given them like a plastic bag, something that was not going to leak as much slime.
Look,
No,
Rob, we're trying to be kind to the environment.
No, yeah,
Yes.
you need that image of like the slime oozing out of each and every hole in that bag. It was like one of those like laundry bags that you throw like mic packs into or little doodads to separate it from the rest of the wash, and they all just had to use that to transport. What was it? Not 100, 250 pounds of slime eels.
Yeah, that was a lot of slime eels overall.
How much? What's the eel to slime ratio on that?
So, I mean, if it was 4 cups of slime every second from 250 pounds, I don't know how much a slime eel weighs. Was it 250 slime eels? Is it 1 slime eel per pound? Were there some big boys in there?
Do they weigh them with the slime?
That's a good question. Well, I don't
It's
know.
pre-slime. Yeah.
I think it could be that's a variable.
4 cups of water weighs 2 pounds.
I feel like slime is heavier than water because I feel like it sank, right? It didn't float.
That's the old saying that slime is thicker than water.
Yeah, that's right. That's Survivor season, right? Slime versus water.
My favorite Survivor season.
Yeah. Also, the slime got very slippery, and we saw Mikey Slimebrows take a bad spill.
I mean, it looked intense on the level of maybe the medic should get called in earlier than Tara for Mikey Eyebrows. It looks like, I don't know, he could have slipped a disc there.
Yeah, I do have to say, there's a lot of questions I'm going to have for Phil when he materializes about the medical supervision and the level of screening and care that is taken here, because I feel like the Tough as Nails ethos is really to run on injuries until you fall apart. And it feels like I have to imagine there's a lot of oversight here.
Yeah, and I feel like that this was the episode where we probably saw the most like on-screen medical intervention, but for not just for Tara at the end of the episode, but Mikey gets hurt, even getting Freight Train out of the water.
Yeah. And look at Phil being so hands-on as well. You spoke about before, Rob, with him sort of acting as a lifeguard. It does seem like Phil, when Mikey Eyebrows fell over, Phil was the one to help him up, right? So Phil is ready to pitch in and help out these contestants when they are fallen and they can't get up.
Yeah.
Well, it's a skeleton crew. He's going to do whatever he needs to do. He's got his hands in every aspect of it, including in the water directly.
Speaking of in the water directly, how about Selly?
Yes.
When she realized like that, okay, well, this is hurting my back to be fishing these slime eels out of the water. I'm going to get in the tub with the slime eels.
I mean, listen, who said that Fear Factor was dead? It is alive and well. But I mean, this also comes from Selly's line of work, right? When you are a nurse and you see people at their worst, medically speaking, it is grody AF. So I can imagine that she's just like, this is just another day at work, quite literally. I mean, Phil called her out on it, right? Said, hey, you're doing so well at this, you could probably quit your job as a nurse and handle slime eels. And she gave a prompt no thank you to that.
That's my favorite part of the episode.
She's very funny.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a Tough as Nails dream team, but I can't imagine that any of the people that ran the challenge to try it out got into the tank like Selly did. I think that might have been emergent strategy on her part.
Oh, look at, breaking the game. Go Selly.
Yes.
Always
Phil,
my favorite
are you able
thing.
to hear us?
I am. I don't know what was going on there, but I was told to be very late to the date. And I believe I'm
I
late
thought you were
to the
told
date.
to leave early.
Well, that too. I'm arriving late and I'm leaving early.
Yeah, it's all about just a very prized middle of the date.
Yes,
is what
perfect.
Phil's been advised about.
And did you notice, Rob, that I didn't answer your email? Because that was another
That's
part
fine.
of the.
Phil, look, we understand you are very busy and you're working on producing the show. So if you have time for us, we're thrilled. And if not, we understand.
Well, next week is going to be a little crazy just because on the schedule, everything starts to pile up, like with the coloring and the mixing and sound mixing. Anyway, I'm here, and
hello.
And you've had a chance to talk for 39 minutes, and And that's going to make my team very happy because they don't want to hear me talk. They want to hear you talk. So I have no idea what you talked about.
We have some questions. And I think that the first question that we want to know is that, can you tell us, is Tara medically evacuated from the game, or is she still competing with the Dirty Hands?
So that's why you're going to watch next week.
Okay.
See, that's how you don't know.
He threw out a line he was baiting us, and we took it hook, line, and sinker.
Pulled you right in there. So,
Fish in.
Yeah, just like that. So, look, everybody who signs up for Tough as Nails comes in. Tara found the application on Facebook, I think it was, through a chat site, and Marina's chat site. She came in, she was injury free, and everybody who comes on the show has to be medically tested. And as you've heard, I mean, pretty much everybody who's on the show has had some form of injury or is working through an injury, like Swifty is. But it's not just up to the contestant whether they're wanting to keep on going or whether they feel like they're fit enough to keep on going. We also have to test them and make sure that they get medical clearance. And that's not up to us. That's up to a doctor or, we have a team doctor, and ultimately they're the one that has to say whether they can carry on or not. So that's what you'll be finding out next week. And so it's interesting because the show is about, as I said at the end, nobody goes home, but then, this is an early days in the franchise. There are, I guess, reasons why somebody could go home, and not necessarily because they were eliminated from the individual, but it could be an injury. So.
Yeah, but given the type of people that you have on the show, I have to imagine the only way someone's going out of this game is on a stretcher.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad. It's just, it was such a gut-wrenching moment. And just reading people's comments online, we brought people to tears just because of Angel's pleading, for Tara to come back. And then Tara's just seeing her distress is horrible. And then Swifty, I mean, I don't know how many shows there are where you see someone basically just say, hold on a second. If you can't compete, I'm not competing. Like, you want to take 5? I'll take 5. Like, that moment, I had so many people talk to me about the character of Swifty in that moment. If you don't fall in love with Swifty in that moment, then you're never going to love Tough as Nails, because that to me was a part of the heartfelt aspect of Tough as Nails that does what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to, not that we want moments like that, but it is part of the ethos of the show that these people, that's not fake. That is a real, genuine concern for their fellow teammates and for others on the show. And so for me, it's just heartwarming to know that we picked somebody like Swifty to be on the show.
Well, it does kind of rhyme with watching at the end of the first challenge, Mikey reaching across the aisle and telling Angel, "You did an amazing job on this challenge," kind of knowing in his head that Angel was taking responsibility for the lack of winning in the previous challenge.
Yes.
And to have that in his head and to make sure that he called him out for that, people are like, I think every episode has a moment like that where somebody on one team is congratulating the other team or making sure the other team is okay with how they've done. And I think that is a really wonderful, it's so antithetical to all of the other reality TV out there.
Yeah. And I mean, there's lots of stuff that we could lean into when we're cutting the show that we deliberately cut out because we don't want to lean into the negative. It's not that we're not going to show conflict and that we're not going to show, heated moments. You're going to see that this season. There's some stuff that happens in future episodes where it gets heated, but we don't want to try to manufacture or try to make more of it than it is. There's always an interpretation. It's a subjective thing about how you deal with moments, but we're trying to say, listen, there's lots of shows that do lean into that stuff and kind of maybe try to make more of something than it is. And we are constantly pushing each other to not go there. Like, like you said, Jesse, let's go to let's emphasize the positive stuff. I saw something where a mother said, I'm sitting down, I'm watching the show with my son. And my son just pointed out what Swifty just did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's powerful, because just the idea as a storyteller to know that she can sit there with her son and that there's something to be learned from that moment that's positive and still like engrossing. Like, how could you not want to come back and see what happens next week?
Yeah. So speaking of those competitive aspects, Phil, we had a question about the whole Mikey Eyebrows accidentally pushes Freight Train in the water, because I don't think it's ever been confirmed in Tough as Nails when you have these two teams often working together on the same test, if you're allowed to touch or get yourself involved with things from the other team. Was this sort of that weird gray area because they were sharing the dock of Mikey Eyebrows just happens to get those traps out of the way, and as a result, Freight Train goes in, even though obviously none of that was intentional?
Yeah, I mean, we do review, like with that moment, we definitely reviewed it. We had it covered from many, many angles, and we did review it because we wanted to be convinced that it was unintentional. If it had been intentional, we would have had to deal with it. Exactly how we would have administered a penalty, I'm not sure. That would have been, something that we'd discuss. We've never had a situation like that before. And then I think, we were all convinced. And in the end, we all talked about it. And we also talked about it with Freight Train and everything. It was unintentional. In the heat of the moment, he pushed those carts. The carts were as high as he was. He didn't see where Freight Train was. I'm pleased that nothing happened to Freight Train, because he could have fallen and hit his head or, but he didn't. And so we moved on. And so there was no sort of lingering resentment left or anything like that. It was what it was. And these things are going to happen. And look, as I said at the end of the show is called Tough as Nails, not, fluffy, soft pillows. We're not making fluffy, soft pillows. Although I said that yesterday in a podcast I was doing with Meryl, and everybody was like, wow, fluffy, soft pillows sounds like a really good reality show. Could you make that, please?
Well, I think what you can do is put Tough as Nails insignia on fluffy, soft pillows in the CBS show and really just make the most of it.
Yeah, maybe Bed of Nails would be more sellable, Bed of Nails tonight on Bed of Nails. But anyway, I mean, look, the show, I'm going to tell you, I've been corresponding with some of the season 1 contestants, and they've all said, man, there's some tough stuff. That building of the garage for 3-something hours off the back of doing the other individual challenge and in the heat and the sun and we have to make sure that the show lives up to its name. And we're trying to do it in the safest possible way. And every single person who is there, I've said many, many times, we want to run a fair, safe competition, but that's not to say that old injuries aren't going to flare up or that everybody is, injury free. It's not life.
Yep. Phil, I thought it was such an emotional moment at the end of the episode, though, when Tara walks off, because she was, feeling so much that she didn't want to be the first person who was eliminated from the show. She has the injury on her hand, and then it was like you need a lot of dexterity to get the ropes untied. And I think that also she felt like, hey, we are in my wheelhouse, that this is like, we're here on the dock, and I can't believe that the people that I work with are going to see me go out on this. And it's just like, I've never seen that before, where somebody basically just walks off the set of I need time alone. I don't want to be here. I thought it was very emotional.
It was, and I think you could see on our faces that our heart went out to her in that moment, and incredibly hard. Look, Tara's a trailblazer. She works in a industry where women are not encouraged to be in the business that she's in. She's breaking new ground for young women that are going to come into her area of work, and she's going to have blazed a trail for them like it's hard work. Like every generation is obviously opening up doors for the next generation, whether it's because of race or sex or age or whatever those barriers are. She has been breaking down barriers. So yes, absolutely. Like that was her challenge to win. It was like, and by the way, Rob, line instead of rope. Now,
Yes,
you will notice that I deliberately left my mistake in the cut. And I wanted to do that to also show that this is her world.
Yeah.
And someone said to me online, "Oh, Phil, you got it wrong." Yeah, I got it wrong. And I'm fine to admit it. And being the showrunner, I could have cut it out, but I left it in deliberately to show that I don't know everything about that line of work, and we're trying to educate people. By the way, I did find out later that a rope sitting on a boat doing nothing, just coiled up, that's a rope.
Oh.
When the rope is assigned a task, as in tied to an anchor, then it is a anchor line or line anchor, anchor line. And then if it's tied to a buoy, or if it's put to use, as soon as the rope is given an assignment, it is then a line. So in that situation, we tied the rope to the buoys and it had an assignment. So then it became line.
So if it's unemployed, it's a rope, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Unemployed rope, but employed line.
So you want to take the line and make it into a rope.
Yes.
Yes. Get it off the unemployment rope.
Yes. And put it in line. Or get out of the line, the unemployment line, and stop being a rope. Get a line.
See, now we're just muddying the waters.
Yeah, this is the new.
Maybe
Who's
we're
on
sliming the waters.
I think we just threw an anchor line over the boat and we sunk that moment. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. That's why I leave all my mistakes in the podcast too, Phil.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you do, Rob. I'm sure you don't go back and fix up mistakes. But
Phil,
the only reason Rob leaves the mistakes in is because when somebody corrects the podcast, they correct me no matter who said the thing.
Oh, got it. And by the way, who knew? Apparently, the three of you were showing incredible restraint with me, and out of respect to me, did not say, Phil, yes, we know all the tribes of Survivor. Now, I had no idea that I would, by soliciting that question, that I would be getting myself in such hot water with Survivor fans. And then to the point where I was sent a link of some young man who had the ability to rattle off every single tribe name blindfolded, which I have to say I was incredibly impressed with. I think it took 2.5 minutes. And all I could think was, man, try putting all of those names onto a T-shirt.
Yeah, meet our listeners, Phil.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, I'm super impressed. And you can leave this mistake in, Rob. I stand corrected. I don't think
any of us could. I think we could name a bunch of them, but I don't think.
I can't name them all.
Collaboratively we'd be able to do so, but no, we do not have nearly the integrity nor the toughness of the person. See, toughness reaches across many different boundaries, right? We each have our line.
And I stand by what we were saying, that you were making a good point. You just like did not know just like what nerds we all were.
Yeah, but I admire that, and I think it's great. I mean, I'm a nerd about certain things. I'm a nerd about cycling and cycling history and that sort of thing. But I think to acknowledge my mistake, and I'm glad you left it in there. I will not use that as a point of reference with regards to why we chose to continue the legacies of Dirty Hands and Savage Crew. I'm going to stay away from that. And to all your Survivor fans who are listening, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, do it again. Do it again.
I'm sorry. In a world of Survivor.
I was gonna say
I'm
apology
sorry.
accepted, I suppose.
Yeah.
Phil, we got to talk about the slime eels.
Yeah.
What brought on the specific choice for that type of task with that particular type of sea creature?
Yeah, who's coming up with the idea? Like, I got it, slime eel.
Well, it came from some feedback that we got from viewers, which was, people who were fans of Dirty Jobs. They like Dirty Jobs, and that people and that we are saying on Tough as Nails, and one of the team names is Dirty Hands. People get their hands dirty every day doing jobs that keep the country running. And they felt like we should lean into something that was a little icky and, maybe instead of a porta potty, cleaning out porta potties, we decided to go with something icky and sticky and messy, like a slime eel. And, I one of my favorite moments was to see Sally use her life skills to listen, you think this is gross? You should see what I have to deal with in the hospital. And then to apply her life skills by getting inside the bin and talking about body mechanics. And I thought that is really cool. We have this show where we have a nurse who's not scared to touch or work with anything. And she knows body mechanics, and she can apply both to working with slime eels, and did really well. So
yeah,
that was it. Nothing more complicated than that.
Can you talk about the actual, how much, you tried to tell a lot, you and the contestants tried to tell a lot between all the comparisons to touching a wet bar of soap, something between boogers and jelly.
I love that one, by the way. I thought that was really cool.
But to talk about the actual handling of the slime eels and the way the contestants did it as well, because we just saw so much calamity happen on that dock between just all the slime that was going everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that job was, sometimes we have jobs that are, we're asking them to do a job in a more difficult way than maybe people would have to do in real life. And a lot of that has to do with seeing how they can adapt to something that is sometimes more difficult than it needs to be. Like there's a challenge coming up in episode 8, one of the team challenges, where we deliberately get them to do it a more difficult way, because every day we're all faced with that, where maybe you don't have the right tools that you need to get the job done. Like you could get the job done more efficiently if you had the right tools, but you don't. You're stuck out somewhere. The truck with all the tools got stuck in the snow, and now you can't get what you needed to get it done. How do you adapt, and how do you get the job done anyway? So that was sort of part of what we were doing there with the slime eels, was right out of the gate to throw something at them that was hard to handle.
Well, how long did it take you to get one of those eels out of there? Because it did show you struggling.
And did I really get it out? I mean, I got it in the hand for like a second, and then it slipped out. But, to actually pick one up and hold it is extremely difficult. The idea is you don't actually grab them, that you shovel them in, which is why Scott was doing so well, because he's got these massive hands, and he could just basically use them like buckets to push them into the bag.
How long did this take? Because I know obviously last time took 3.5 hours. You said they were an hour in last time, or in this task. Do you know how long this one ended up taking? Sort of what you were speaking about before with the season 1 contestants, about how much you just ramped up these challenges.
Yeah, it was long. It was long. And I think I mentioned to you, one of the reasons, one of the challenges that we had was we had less testing time because we had less access to some locations. And that particular location, I think, was the 7th location that we had looked at because of parking, because of COVID protocols. By the way, interesting, somebody contacted me and said, I can't believe you shot during COVID. Why would you guys spread COVID during, and I wrote back a very polite response and said, thank you for your concern. I appreciate your concern about our health and well-being. However, we're very proud of the fact that we were able to have people continue with their livelihoods. We went to great lengths to keep everybody safe, and I'm proud to report that we got through the entire season with hundreds of people working without an incident of COVID. But again, thank you for your concern. Anyway, yes, shooting during COVID and trying to get tests in, and trying to, because you do tests to sort of get a sense of how long you're going to, how long things are going to take. It took longer than we probably would have wanted it to take. But, and you could see how much we pushed the day. In overtime, we were running out of light.
Yeah.
It was getting late. It was getting very late.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. Like, how long was the action paused before Swifty decided to finish the challenge?
It was all, I mean,
Like-
there's a little bit of compression with editing and so on, but
Yeah.
it wasn't long. I mean, Tara went away. She needed a moment. She took a moment, but also we wanted to make sure that we got her medical assistance. So you could see Anthony, who is our medic, was right there to make sure that she was okay. And then she came back with her hand bandaged up. So I don't know, probably 10 minutes, like Tara was probably gone for 10 minutes. She just took some time, got her hand attended to, came back. And then within that time, Swifty was convinced that he should finish the job. And you heard what he said. He said, it's not how I wanted to do it, but I'm here for my family and I got to finish it off. And then you heard Angel talking about how many people wish they could be in his situation. And so it was pretty powerful. And now you're going to have to see whether Tara wants to come back because she feels like her hand is okay to carry on, or B, whether we say we think she can carry on because of us looking at her and assessing whether she's medically cleared.
Yeah,
What
we have speculated a lot about what's going to happen if that comes to pass. Like what happens when one of the teams is a man down?
I will tell you this: there are a number of interesting surprises this season, over the whole season. But the great news is that the format, which is new and still being tested, holds up, and whatever gets thrown at us this season, because of the strength of the format and because of the individual and the team competition, those format elements allow us to deal with some new challenges that we did not necessarily have in season one.
Phil, did you consider having Captain Mark join one of the teams?
One of the things that's very frustrating, and I mean, maybe it wasn't evident, but Captain Mark had to be 20 feet, or it might have even been 25 feet away from us.
Oh.
So right up until the shot of Captain Mark, he's wearing a mask. We're all wearing masks. Like anytime that we are not rolling cameras, we're wearing masks, and everybody behind the scenes has to wear a mask. There's not even a question. So the only people that ever take a mask off are people who are on camera, myself, the contestants, and then any special guest. But Captain Mark, if you look at where the shot was, he's actually, we had to like push him off the dock
on his own
get
boat.
that cutaway of him. And then immediately when we're done, it was like, all right, Mark, put your mask back on, please, because he's not officially in our bubble. So there's actually a wide shot where if you look very carefully, you'll see a wide shot that was taken at one point where I had a mask on because we were in between shooting, and then there was an establisher shot, and you can actually, so we were all like putting masks on, taking them off, putting them on, taking them off. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, shooting during COVID is no joke. It is, it's like a whole other layer of stress for everybody. It's, red zone and green zone toilets, and don't cross here, and then shooting on that wharf. Forget about it. Like the green zone art department had to go out, set up the challenge. Then green zone comes off. Then we send people to spray it down. Then we wait 10 minutes. Then red zone can go out. Green zone can't go back now. Oh no, hold on a second. We had something that needed to be changed. Red zone out, spray it down, wait 10 minutes, green zone back in, fix the mistake, green zone out, spray it down, red zone back in. I mean, it's not easy. And it's like I said to you, more than 24 locations on Tough as Nails. It's not like we're in one hotel like Love Island or in one house like Big Brother, where the protocols are set in place and you go back, you rinse, you repeat. This is on a dock, on a wharf, at a farm, in a factory, up on a building every day, And so like I said, I sent out a tweet, I think it was yesterday, to thank everybody. I am just so incredibly proud of everybody who managed to get us through this with all those pieces flying in from all different places that we actually got this show done. It's a miracle.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm surprised Captain Mark lent you his boat then for that team challenge, considering maybe the health and safety standards.
Well, he had, his boat has probably never been as sterilized as it was because we just rode that thing down.
Phil, we also got to see the Tough as Nails season 2 intro last night.
Yes. What did you think? Were you all right with it?
No nicknames. I was surprised by that. Everyone went by their legal name in the intro.
Yes. I think in hindsight, one of the concerns was, I think I mentioned to you, was being too familiar too quickly. Like out of the gate, me just calling them by their nickname before I really get to know them. I think in hindsight, we just go, you know what? We've known these people for a while in the auditions. Let's just like start with the nicknames out of the gate. I think that would be what I would push for. You live and you learn. You live and you learn.
Yeah. But the effects on the intro were very, very impressive.
Yeah.
Everybody like in their like natural habitat, and then we go to the next person right after that. That was very slick. Like
there's a company. There's a company that did the Django poster. A guy that does a lot of graphics that my wife and producing partner have been working with for a long, long time. He did the La Ride posters, and he's done a lot of stuff. And normally they would be on the shoot, but we had to have them on a Zoom call watching the green screen shoot. And we were all talking about, where stuff was going to be. And I thought everybody did a really, really good job at acting out being in their environment, even though they weren't in their environment. So I think they were better. It was better than last season just because we kind of knew where we were going and what we had to do. And so I liked it because you really got to see everybody's environment. It's hard to put in the titles, to be honest with you, because one of the notes that we get from is to get into the action sooner. So that 40 seconds takes, means it takes longer to get into the show. So we'll be using them, but not necessarily all the time.
When you get that green screen footage of them, is that in the same day you do all the press photos, which I'm assuming happens before the season starts proper? Exactly.
Yeah. So we have a big warehouse and we just rotate everybody through different stations. So you're on green screen, you're doing your master interview, you're in press, you're in photo, you're in EPK, you're doing a news story with local CBS, and then we just rotate everybody, and production comes up with a great schedule to just be as efficient as we possibly can. But yeah, we have a great location, and the still photos, as you saw in the calendar, we have a whole setup for that as well.
Phil, can you talk about going back to the overtime challenge? Even outside of Tara walking away, there was so much calamity going on between, it was a tight race, and then Swifty gets his last buoy, but then he starts cramping up, and it seems like he is just wailing in agony. And then there's a point where Tara walks over and starts moving Swifty's rope, not even like in a message to be like, I'm done, but more so to say, I'm going to help you with this. Then he refuses, then she walks, and as you say, then Swifty offers to take the 5-minute break. What was going through your head, and what was sort of the mood in the room while all of this was happening?
We were in shock. I mean, I think you see in my face, I'm just like, what, we're just like, what is going on right now? It was like one thing after another. One thing just kept hitting. I mean, it was, you could see it in Sally's face. You could see Meryl had her head in her hands. And we were all in shock. We were all, and then these moments that just kept happening. There was a lot of emotion, and I think it's only now that we're past it that we can kind of reflect and sort of think about what was going on. But in the moment, there was heartbreak, there was compassion, it was, you never want to see somebody in pain. It's no different than, when you're watching a football game and someone has an injury or if you've been in the stadium before where there's a sort of hushed tone because you realize that what's just happened could be a career-ending injury. It's that kind of feeling of, what's going on? Are they okay? Are they going to be okay? And so there's sort of that feeling, because it happens like that, right? I mean, like it
Yeah.
just like that whole moment with Tara going over to help Swifty, I think in that moment says a lot about her. And I think the audience noticed it. She was sort of like, he's ahead of me. He's going to beat me. I can't get my job done. I'm going to help him just finish it up and we'll get this over and done with. I think that's where her head was. I can't speak for her, but I think that's what was going through her head. And then just again, to your point about the circumstances and how they stacked up. I mean, I think she went into that thinking, yes, I'm injured, but this is in my wheelhouse. I got this. And then somehow Swifty manages to stay even with her. Admittedly, she's in pain, but then who saw that he was going to be in pain? I mean, it was
Right.
a lot. It was a lot.
So I got a tiny logistical question for you. I noticed that Swifty is wearing gloves in this challenge and Tara is not. Is this an option that they're given and
Yeah.
gloves are supplied, and they can choose whether or not to do them?
Yeah, it is. I think Tara, just from in her line of work, is used to working without gloves doing her job. And
Mhm.
so she probably took the same approach that she would at work, where she doesn't wear gloves. They're always provided as an option. They can always wear protection. We only mandate, like someone said, how come they're not wearing protection? If they're not wearing protection, it's because it's not a mandate. It's not something that we can mandate.
Mm-hmm.
But if we ever feel like, their safety is at risk, then yes, we make sure that they wear it. Like if there's, the sound goes over a certain level, then yes, you have to wear ear protection. Or if there's really sharp objects, we ask them to wear the gloves. But yeah, I mean, some people are good without wearing gloves and some people are. But if it was something that was going to potentially injure them and the gloves are the only way of protecting them, then yeah, of course, we would make them wear it. Like they were given an option to wear gloves with the slime eel too. That would be there. But they want, many of them. I'm trying to think of anybody wearing gloves. I think everybody went without. I think.
And they wanted to get close to the slime.
Yeah. Get a real feel for it.
Phil, we saw Freight Train say that it was very important to him to stay out of the overtime. That was his strategy. And sort of it makes sense when you think about it, where, we saw how much for Swifty and Tara, how much it took out of them to just be a part of the overtime. And I hadn't really thought about that, like where Young last season ended up in so many overtimes. And I wonder if, being in overtime, like even if you survive it, it does come at a cost.
Yep. Every time you're asked to do one, I mean, it is overtime. You're doing extra work, right? And so there's a cumulative effect. If you know anything like about the Tour de France, it's a 3-week race. You have to decide when you're going to burn your matches, because you've only got so many matches to burn in that race over a 3-week period. It's the same with Tough as Nails. It takes place over a month. You've got to decide when you're going to really put in a concerted effort. And every time you are forced to go into overtime, you are burning up matches. You are using up ADP. You're using up energy that you have in your muscles that you should really be trying to store and hold on to for when you really need it. If you're pushed, down into the final 4 or the final 3, there's a cumulative effect of doing more work than somebody else. So yeah, absolutely. Very smart thinking.
Yeah. And I wonder, we talked about this last season as well, but I do wonder if this will continue to come into play then, as more people get eliminated and are putting their all into the team challenges, are the people who are left in the game, maybe to your point, conserving more of their energy during the team challenges because they know, okay, individuals, $2,000 would be nice, but individuals going to keep me in the hunt for $200,000. So maybe I'm going to save my juice for another day.
Yeah. I mean, I would have thought that there would be more of that, to be honest with you, Mike. But if you look at what happened last season in episode 9, where Murph and Danny, I don't think there was any question about whether they gave it absolutely everything that they had. I think, they bled for their team literally, and they gave it they gave everything they had. They excuse me, they left it all out there. So, is there going to be in the future somebody who comes on who in a bite says to us, listen, I'm all about helping my team out, but today I'm thinking about that individual win, and I'm going to just back it off a wee bit, and I'm going to do what I can, but we haven't had that yet. But it's not to say it won't happen in the future, but I have not seen that in season 1, or I don't believe it ever happens in season 2 either. I think everybody, when they're there for their team, you can see the bond. I mean, look how closely bonded they are. It's pretty evident. Yeah.
Phil, what can you tell us about next week? We know that we'll have to tune in to see what's going on with Tara. Can you tell us anything about the task?
Yes. So, so big reveal, next week. And as I said to you in the season overall, expect some surprises, going right up to the end. Actually, there's some things that happen in season 2 that didn't happen in season 1. And as I said to you, I think the strength of the format allows the show to be resilient to anything that gets thrown, like any odd curveball that gets thrown. Like last night was a curveball, right? I mean, and the show held, and it's held together because of our amazing cast. Okay, so as far as the team challenges go, I alluded to the fact that there's some heavy equipment in there, or heavy lifting. Not necessarily that they will have to do the heavy lifting, but they have some machines that can do some heavy lifting. So it's quite different in terms of the skill sets that they have to draw on next week. It's less of the it's less physical and more of a mental skill, dexterity type show, where you will see people really shine because of the skills that they have in their everyday lives. And you're also going to just see how people cope with coordination, agility, that type of thing. So some strong people who are maybe not necessarily that great at agility. And again, this goes back to why we've tried to balance the show with strength, endurance, agility, life skills, and mental toughness, and why we can have a COVID nurse competing with someone who is a construction superintendent. So yeah, we just change it up. And then that happens again in show 4, where we change it up again. And show 5 is awesome. It's very different from everything in the whole season. It comes right at a great time in the season, because it's in the middle. So, and then I've just been speaking to the producers about show 10. They're really excited about the finale. So it ends, the season ends really strong. I think, we've started off strong, and I think the good news is we know we've got great stuff. And when the producers are excited and you haven't seen cuts internally and they're excited about sharing stuff, because we see the internal cuts, we go over them before they go to the network. When we hear that they're excited, then that's, good. So speaking of the team, I know that they're going to be like, Phil, shut up, let them talk. Yes, there you go. Somebody upstairs. Is that right? Time to leave? Yeah, apparently the waiter. Oh, look, the waiter. Hi, yes, dessert. These people would like dessert. Thank you. Yeah, I've got to go. But yeah, just put it on my check. Yeah, that's great.
Oh, Phil.
Yeah,
wow.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Phil.
I'll pick up the tab. Please don't order any expensive dessert wines. That's the only thing I ask you to do.
You got it.
I was going to order a nice glass of slime.
I can't. Yeah, a glass of slime is fine. Hey, a glass of slime at 9 is fine. I don't know where I'm going with that. Anyway, I'll pick up the check.
Thank you, Phil.
You guys carry on and say really interesting stuff so my team can go, yeah, it was so much better when you left, Phil, because they
wait
really
until you
up.
hear the first 39 minutes, Phil.
The first 39 is good?
I think so.
Oh, yeah.
Probably better than from 39 to where are we
never.
now?
No,
Never.
just different. Just different.
Just different.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
And don't think I haven't noticed, Jess, that your glasses match your microphone. That's beautiful. Thank you.
I did that on purpose.
All right. I'm going to leave now.
Yes. Okay.
I'm going to color the show. Show 3. Goodbye.
Bye, Phil.
There he is, the host, and executive producer
Wow.
of Tough as Nails.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All
What
right,
a
so I'm gonna
wild
start
ride.
working on the glass of slime time at 9 shirt going, or put it on a fancy pillow, fluffy
Coming
soft
soon
pillow.
to the RHAP store.
Yeah. Fluffy soft pillows. A glass of slime at 9 is fine. All right.
No, I'm doing this now. I'm getting out the Procreate. I'm gonna do this.
Okay. You want some questions from the Facebook group?
Yeah.
Robert's Podcast patron Facebook group. Shout out to John, who starts the thread going for us every week, and we get some interesting questions. Nick Fishman wants to know, how did it take 20 years of reality TV before slime eels ever made its way onto our screen? You could see slime be created out of nowhere. Yeah. How was this never in the Big Brother backyard? How did we never see this across any of our reality TV shows?
I do feel like had Big Brother maybe done some more stuff a la Big Brother Canada and like brought more creatures in, I could very easily see a thing of, okay, what's Otev's gonna be like, I'm Harriet the Hagfish, and you have to come up to my slime-filled ramp and get me the right colored bag with a house guest's name on it.
Well, this could be an animal cruelty thing, honestly. Like, these slime eels are going to a better place. They have their purpose. They're going to sit in a tank and produce slime in the lap of luxury, obviously. They're going to go to the farm. But maybe you can't just buy a crate of slime eels to entertain people on Big Brother.
Maybe they're stuck at the Port Authority.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, maybe could we replace the tried and true slip and slide challenge with just transporting slime eels? Because that's essentially what this turned into, Rob, right? Where like they were just slipping and sliding all over the place. It created its own lubricant.
Harriet the Hagfish, I brought you a cup of slime at 9. It's fine.
That is correct.
Okay. Mike Christensen, one of our resident animal experts, he said, I'm sure Rob is out on them, but the hagfish are super interesting from an evolutionary perspective. They're the only animals with a developed skull, but no backbone, and are basically what we looked like 500 million years ago.
Developed skull and no backbone. I haven't been described that way in years.
I was going to say, that sounds like Mike.
I mean, I'm glad. So in many regards, so to link back the first question to the second one, that this was explored, much like Tough as Nails brings a lot of industries to light, or maybe back into the forethought that we might not think of on a daily basis. Here's a creature that some of us might not thought of. I know hagfish did make their way into the zeitgeist a few years ago. I remember there was a picture that circulated online of like someone transporting hagfish, and they got in a car accident, and then like their car essentially like exploded in slime. And so,
wow,
I'm gonna be Googling this immediately.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, it looks like
Fire
something
up
out of
the YouTube.
Ghostbusters, where a ghost made it. The Ghostbusters slimed this car, and just a bunch of slime burst out from it, while all these hagfish that just ended up spilling all over the highway.
Oh, this is amazing. Yeah, you didn't oversell this, Mike.
Yeah. Mike, so are you saying that we could replace airbag technology if you have enough hagfish in your car, that if you get in some sort of a collision, they will like get that 4 cups of slime per second going and protect you?
I mean, you got to put a lot in there though to create the effect. Because how
didn't that
how
happen
much
in Demolition Man, Jess?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Oh, they went to the bathroom, and those were those 2 hagfish that they had to use instead of toilet paper.
Different.
That was totally different.
Where are we? What are we doing? Yes. Jess, do you have anything else about Tough as Nails episode 2?
I think we've covered most of it. I want to call out, I was wondering, and I figured Phil can't tell us if this is true or not, but I wonder if we're going to get another Danny Murph rivalry where it seems like the two of them are the front runners.
Yes, and who do you see it between?
I wonder if it's a Liz and Scott situation.
Yeah,
where they're always at the front of the pack.
That's what Ben is suggesting too in the in the questions. Mike, are you seeing a showdown between Scott and Liz?
I'm definitely seeing the Knuckles side of it, because both individual challenges we've had so far, Knuckles has finished in the top 2. I'm assuming this is going to be a storyline recurring of always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But I feel like it could either be Scott or maybe Mikey if he doesn't, crack in half by the end of all this, because Mikey, you know, he finished in the middle of the pack, but I do think that Knuckles has shown consistency across both individual challenges that I do think she is a front runner at this point.
Yeah, I don't think Mikey shows the same consistency. I think he's going to be very good at the things he's good at, and then maybe less good at the things he's not good at.
By the way, I am a big knucklehead. That is my number one favorite on the show.
Yeah, me too.
She's really good. I think
she's great.
Mike and I were talking about this after you ended up leaving towards the end of the show last week, Jess. But yeah, I feel like that she really pops on the show. I think that she's really good on this TV show.
Yeah, I'm sad that she was rather purple this week. That I think there was just so much other stuff going on. She was not hurt, nor was she in any danger. That we didn't get. I don't think we actually heard from her outside of when she ended up coming in second. Speaking of Scott, though, I guess shout out to his photographer for his third wedding. I don't know if you guys caught that snapshot, but it looks super trendy.
Yeah,
that was Insta worthy.
Insta worthy. So yeah, good for Scott. All right, Mike. Anything else that you want to add about episode 2?
So I did look up Swifty's foot condition.
Ooh.
I would recommend people don't, or hopefully people were not like, I don't think this was the episode for people to be eating breakfast during, between the slime stuff and then
Jason Reed was tweeting us on Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah,
or Swifty talking about his condition. Maybe I have too much of an overactive imagination. So what was it, like pitted keratosis is a condition where essentially bacteria causes like pitted depressions in your foot. Or maybe I took Swifty a bit too literally when he said he had a hole in his foot. Because I had this graphic image of like a hole you could see through, like peeking through Porky style through Swifty's foot. That is not the case. It more so just looks like grayscale almost on someone's foot.
Ew, that's gross though.
Oh no. Okay.
So you're gonna have to bring in Samwise Tarly to maybe carve some of us.
Send him off to Valeria.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking that bullet for us, Mike.
Yeah, I did feel like that. I don't know if Sally knew what that was, but what is the condition?
Yeah, she's like, oh yeah, I pitted keratosis. You probably know what that is.
Yeah. She's like, oh yeah. I don't know.
Well, I think she just said all the time as a nurse, though, right? Oh, you're a nurse. You won't believe what I'm going through, and she just has to smile and nod through it.
This common condition, sure. All right, Tough as Nails season 2. We're 20% of the way through a Tough as Nails season.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah,
but I mean, if Phil's previews were of any indication, we've got a lot more craziness to go. I certainly did not expect episode 2 to end the way it did. So essentially, if we are taking the last 5 minutes of episode 2 and distilling it across the next 8 episodes, I think we're in for a very fun time.
By the way, I forgot to tell Phil, but I did feel extra tough that I watched the Tough as Nails episode this morning while on the treadmill. So I felt like that I was I felt like very like I was part of it. Basically, I was like in the cast.
I mean, basically, yeah, you're tough as nails, Rob.
Now, were you running or were you freight train running on the treadmill? What speed was it?
I was not running at all. Walking on a slight incline with no slime beneath me. That's it. It's like
that's what
crazy.
you know. That's what they should do. It's sort of like instead of resistance bands, it's the opposite, right? It's providing less friction. Just coat the treadmill in slime and enjoy your walk.
Yeah. How am I supposed to take notes on my phone if I'm running, Mike? Come on. Okay. All right. Well, this was a lot of fun. We'll be back next week. It sounds like that might just be us next week if Phil is busy working on the show, but we'll have a lot of fun when we talk about what will happen with Tara and all the heavy machinery going on in episode 3 of Tough as Nails. All right, Jess, what are you going to be working on in between now and then?
Well, a podcast dropped today that I was on that was very, very fun. Over on Post Show Recaps, our sister site, Josh Wigler and I talked about Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and it was a surprisingly fun time.
Oh, another episode 2.
Yeah, another episode 2.
Yes.
And then we are gearing
That
up
was where my head went when Phil said that they worked with the artist who did the poster for Django. I thought, Django Fett.
Yeah, well, sure.
Different Django.
Yeah, different Django entirely. Yeah, and then I believe next week I've got plans with Rob to be talking about the 33rd Best Survivor season.
Yeah. Yes, very excited to talk about heroes, healers, and hustlers. Probably a lot of the heroes would be on the Tough as Nails team.
I don't
think
know. We have a healer though in this season in Selly, so I think she's very.
Yeah.
I would say she's very
That's
much
true.
in Dr. Mike vein, but I do not think
Yeah,
that's
and probably
the case.
some hustlers
No.
too. Yeah,
Yeah, I think
that
you have to
Lauren
be a
Rimmer
hustler.
would have been. She's a good Tough as Nails
Yeah.
person.
For sure. And horseshoe crab blood is kind of adjacent to eel slime. It all comes together.
Yeah. Okay. Looking forward to that on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
And Mike, what are you up to?
So down the hatch, we are continuing our deep dive through season 4, talking about Eggtown, not Slimetown, Eggtown. Over on the Bloom Files, Angela Bloom and myself, we finished the X-Files season 1 already and moved on to season 2. So we did a double header podcast there. Survivor South Africa, Shannon, Gus, and I are getting into the merge of Survivor, 2-part merge episode where a lot happens. Yeah, it's 2 hours of merge and only about 15 minutes of recap in that episode. So there's a bunch of stuff to get into there. And other than that, Rob, you and I might be gearing up for an Outwit Outplay Out list. Next week, we've got some other stuff going on in the hopper as we begin to close out February and begin March in like a lion, certainly.
Yeah. Okay. Of course, this past week that I talked about the 34th best season of Survivor, and that was a Survivor in Nicaragua. Had a lot of fun with AJ Norris and Jacob Jones on Wednesday night to talk about all that. We're going to wrap up Pirate Master coming up later on this week, but we have a great episode. Part 3, Liana Boris joined Aaron Robertson and I. What a trooper. Liana Boris watched 11 episodes of Pirate Master to do one podcast with us. And so that was a lot of fun. And then, of course, we're going to have some more Twish Ultimate Trivia. I don't know if we'll ever get Phil on the Survivor quiz show of Twish Ultimate Trivia, but we'll be back to play some more Twish Trivia on Thursday night. So be on the lookout for that. And of course, you can subscribe to our Tough as Nails podcast feed at robhasawebsite.com/Tough as Nails. And of course, find out about everything else we have going on over at robhasawebsite.com/patron. All right. Anything else?
No, I'm ready to do some heavy lifting next week, operate some bulldozers. Let's get back into the territory or continue in the territory that none of us are familiar with, I'm assuming. But I'm excited to go from the sea shore back to the land proper and all the dirt in between.
All right.
I'm ready to take the line that is this podcast and turn it back into a rope.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.